What's up, Internet? My name is Iron Jordan. Today we're going to do a meta-analysis video and we're going to talk about Toppo Righteous Aid. So here's the card. We're going to go over it. 4 drop, 20k, 0 plus 5k combo. Counter attack, choose one other card in your hand, place it in your drop area, then negate the attack and play this card. Permanent, if it's your opponent's turn, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 2. Auto, if it's your opponent's turn when you play this card, for the duration of the turn, your opponent can't attack unless they choose 2 cards from their hand and place them in their drop area each time. So my topic for today is what I want to do is highlight why I think Toppo is just a little too good. It's important to note that I do not think this card is just insanely busted. I don't think it's the most broken card in the game. I have played through Toppo in 1 games. I have countered Toppo in 1 games. I have also lost games because of Toppo. He's just a very powerful card. So I just want to take this time to try to look at Toppo in an as objective manner as possible. Just see what he does, why he's so powerful, what effect he has on the meta, and what, if anything, should or will Bandai do to this card in the future. The first thing, if you have been playing Dragon Ball for any amount of time, that comes to your mind when you see Toppo for the first time is Flying Nimbus. He's essentially a red version of Flying Nimbus. He's just a little bit better. Flying Nimbus is a 1 mana yellow card. Counter attack, negate the attack. Then you may place 1 yellow card in your hand in the drop area. If you do so, your opponent can only attack 1 more time with battle cards for the duration of the turn. So, the reason why I say that Toppo is a better version of Nimbus is because Nimbus is a lot easier to play around. Now, it's important to note that Nimbus is a mandatory effect. You only have 3 attacks total in a Nimbus turn. Total. You're typically, if you play around it correctly, going to get 1 battle card attack. They'll play the Nimbus. They'll discard a card. You'll get another battle card attack, and then your leader. Okay. It's also important to note that Flying Nimbus is not a mandatory effect for discarding. So if you only want to negate 1 attack with Flying Nimbus, it's optional whether or not you want to pitch that yellow card. Important to note with Toppo that the pitch is mandatory. However, it does not have to be a certain color. There are no color restrictions on Toppo other than the fact that you have to have 1 red energy charged. There's no leader restriction or anything like that. However, your opponent can attack through Toppo. It's their choice. It's just usually a bad choice. Almost always. In fact, whenever you see high-level play, typically if you're watching a top 16 stream, top 8 stream, whatever regional event you're looking at, when Toppo gets played, the player just passes. It just kind of ends turns. So, Nimbus also doesn't come with a body. That's important to note. And when we're talking about hand advantage, which is what this game revolves around, Toppo comes out ahead as well. Let's say, all things considered equal, that you have no extra card negate, you have no negate, no counter, and you have no counterplay for the Toppo. Okay? All things equal, you have the same amount of cards in hand, whatever. This is why Toppo is better at hand advantage. Nimbus. You attack with the battle card. Your opponent negates it with Nimbus and then discards a card from their hand. They are now at -2. You now have an additional battle card attack and your leader swing. Your battle card attack, let's say they use another negate on it, or they eat the damage, or they combo a card away to get over it. You just took more hand advantage from your opponent or advanced the game state by killing your opponent, by doing the damage to them. Then you have your leader card attack. Your leader card attack is going to draw you a card, which is going to put positive advantage in your hand, and then your opponent is going to either have to negate it or use a card to stop it. So that does not happen with Toppo. Because if you're playing around Toppo correctly, and again, we're assuming no negates, no counterplays, no nothing like that, the best way to play around Toppo in that case is to attack with your leader, get the draw off your leader, they Toppo you, they go -2, they put a body on board, you went +1, you pass your turn. So it doesn't seem that bad when you put it into perspective. However, the severe difference in hand advantage between Nimbus played around correctly and Toppo played around correctly is kind of ridiculous, specifically considering the fact that Toppo becomes a body on the bat swing and is going to generate negative advantage for the player that he was played against because he's going to attack into the leader. Of course, unless your opponent has a Toppo or whatever. In which case, just have fun, guys, I guess. Have fun. Um, it's just kind of a lot of value, which is really my main point in this. Again, like I said, no leader restriction, very easy specified cost, puts a 20k body into play. That's already pretty good. Now, counterplay does exist. Counterplay does exist. Before everybody starts jumping on me, counterplay does exist. I myself, literally 2 weeks ago, played against 3 Surge Gokus in a row at locals, and they both played, all three of them played 2 Toppos on me per game, and I countered 1 Toppo each game. So even then, that was almost a best case scenario. Like I had to focus break. I was playing Clash of Fates Goku, and I had a focus breakthrough for some of it. Some of it I didn't want to, but even then, you're talking about it was an extra turn spell for my opponents that just turned off my turn 50% of the time, which is probably less often than it will be usually, because most people won't always have counterplay for it or won't be willing to use the energy on their turn for the counterplay, and that's kind of a pretty high percentage for this. So looking at the list of cards that are pretty good against Toppo, the main ones are Denial of Hope, Preemptive Strike, and Hidden Potential. Now obviously we do have these one-drop counterplay cards that are color-specific, Absolute Release Ball, Focus Breakthrough, like I just mentioned, I used, Super Kamehameha, stuff like that, that does get rid of the card, but you have to be at a specific life. Cold Bloodlust will hit it, but you only get one if you're a Frieza army leader. Desperate Measures will hit it, but it puts it back in your opponent's hand. These are all ways to get rid of Toppo, and if you're pushing for game, they're amazing. If you already have your board established, and if you're already ready to end the game right now, I have a Victory Strike on board, I have a Secret Rare on board, I have a Big Threat, a Dual Attacker, I have a whatever I have on board. I can end the game right now with the attackers I have right now, and your opponent plays a Toppo into that, and you counter it. That's amazing. That's awesome. That is the way that it's supposed to be counterplayed, but it's not going to happen all the time like that. In fact, most of the time, if you have more than just one battle card on board and your opponent plays a Toppo into it, you're just passing your turn. And that's kind of the issue with Toppo. These cards work wonders. They're great. They're amazing. But should you really be asked to pay 1-2 energy on your turn to have permission to continue to play your turn? Or in Super Kamehameha, Focus Breakthrough, Absolute Release Ball, all these cards, in their case, should you have to ping a life on your turn just for the permission to keep playing your turn? And I don't really think that that is fair or feasible or whatever you want to call it. Some colors do have better answers than others. Blue obviously usually bounces it back to hand, which is not great, especially if they have multiple energy up to defend with. Yellow really only has Cold Bloodlust, and I guess you can play Deadly Poison if you're playing blue-yellow, but again, you're paying 3 energy. You're paying 3 energy on your turn to continue playing on your turn. To continue playing your turn. So what, if anything, should Bandai do with Toppo? Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, I'm not the biggest fan of calling for bans on this channel anyway. I might do it in person sometimes, but you know, hey. I do believe that Bandai already has their eye on this card. My reasoning for that is this. You have a card that sees play in every competitive red deck, and your deck is strictly worse if you don't run him. It's an incredibly powerful effect for a low energy investment. I think the biggest reason Toppo might eventually get hit is because he's one of the most feels bad cards to play against. Now, when we talk about feels bad, it's typically that thing where it's like, man, that card makes me not really want to play the game. Cell Chain got hit for part of this reason. They did say that in the design notes that Cell Chain was a very unfun card to play against, and so that's part of the reason why they hit the 3-drop. So I think Toppo fits in the same category. It's not fun to have your turn just turned off for 2 energy. Even if you can counterplay it, it's like, why should I be expected to pay 2 energy, 1 or 2 energy on my turn just for the ability to continue playing the game? Even if you have an answer, no one wants to have to pay life or energy on their turn to get permission to continue playing their turn out, as we mentioned multiple times. And that's just what this comes down to. That's why I do believe that Bandai probably already has their eye on this card and might be looking to, in the future, do something to it. I hope this video provided some insight on why Toppo is just a tad bit too powerful and why he may get touched in the future. Let me know what you think about the video in the comments below. I'm sure that a lot of people will just shriek at me because that's what happens every time I mention something about Toppo. But we can have a civil discussion if you'd like in the comments or on the Facebook page. I'd be happy to talk to you, answer questions, whatever. Subscribe to the channel if you like it. I'll be doing more stuff like this all the time. I'm going to try to put out 4 videos a week at the very least, potentially more. And I hope you guys have a good rest of your afternoon. See ya.